Hi, I'm Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Patrice.
And I'm Emily.
And today we're going to be talking about trees. Our focus question is, what are the different characteristics of trees? Go.
Our first question that we're going to test is question number 1, looking at leaves from different trees, what differences in appearance do you see? So we have our claim here that leaves have different colors, sizes, shapes, lines, and texture. And the way we're going to test that is to do leaf rubbing. Our evidence shows that after the crayon rubbings, we can see all the differences.
As you can see here with this leaf, all of the veins go to the center where the stem is at. And in the actual leaf, you can see that as well. The texture is very smooth, color's green, has a lot of detail in it.
In this one, you can see that the veins are all going to the center as well, like the last leaf, but it has more jagged edges. And when you look at the actual leaf, you can see the edges on the end of it. And then this one's color is a bit more brown and not as green.
Yeah.
When looking at leaves, we also found an app on the iPhone that will help when we take a picture. It'll tell us what kind of tree the leaf came off of. And this is another characteristic of leaves, is that we can find different trees by their shape and size of their leaves. So we're going to take a picture of this leaf right here, and we're going to find out what it is. As you can see on the app, it has taken the shape of the leaf and identified it as a tulip leaf. So it's from a tulip tree. So this app could be helpful for us to identify what trees the leaves came from.
Okay, so for question 2, we asked, what does the bark or the trunk tell us about the tree?
And then our claim was that the bark and the trunk tell us about the age of the tree and the type of the tree. Since we didn't want to cut down a tree to look at the trunk in the middle of the tree, we got these pictures offline and did a little research. And we can see here in the middle it shows where the first year of growth happened in the tree. And then you can kind of see the lines are closer together, and then for a period they get a little further away. And that represents the rainy season. And then once they get back closer, it represents the dry season. And this one's even more special because it has a scar from a forest fire. But we can see that this tells us kind of different things about the tree, and then if you count the number of rings in the tree, it tells you how old the tree is.
Another part of our evidence for our claim was that we went outside and we found 4 different trees and took 4 different samples of bark from each tree. And if you go and you feel each bark, you can tell that they each feel very different. Some of the bark is really smooth and some of it's really rough. And they all have different textures.
So after researching and finding the pictures about the trunks, we learned that the trunks can tell us about different seasons that the tree has been through and the age and even like fires that it may have survived. So that research showed us a little bit about the trunks and what they tell us. And then after looking at the bark, we can see that each kind of tree has a different kind of bark. Some are smooth and some are rough, and maybe they're a little different in color. And so all that proves our claim.
Okay, so our third and final question is, what happens to the leaves when the weather changes? So our claim is seasons and weather have a profound effect on the cycle of leaves.
As you can see with the color, these leaves are still green because the weather hadn't changed yet and it was still warm temperatures. And then as the weather started getting cooler and the temperature started dropping, the leaves started changing colors.
Okay, so a big misconception that a lot of students have is that every single tree in nature loses their leaves. However, this is not true. When we researched what happens to leaves seasonally, we found out that pine trees, such as this right here, do not lose all of their pines seasonally. They lose them according to their year and how long they are planted in the ground.
So our evidence shows that after some research and investigation, we found that weather does affect the color and makes the leaves fall off of most trees.
Alright, after finishing all our little experiments, we're going to look back at our focus question. What are the different characteristics of trees? In the first one, we looked at the different kinds of leaves that come from different trees. They were different shapes, different sizes. Some had different edges to them, and the veins in them can be different on each one. And then we looked at the bark and the trunk, and each bark was a little bit different from each tree, so that's another characteristic. The last thing we looked at was how the weather can affect the leaves. We saw that most of the leaves for most trees fall during the winter, but that pine needles are a little bit different in that they fall when they get older. So all those different characteristics are characteristics of the trees, so having to do with the leaves and the trunks and the bark.